look at history, specifically history of Jesus and the early church. In the study of this history, it is important to note all historians come to the material with a bias. This leads scholars to make up a Jesus of their own making. In a profound lecture, Dr. Dale Allison, a formidable scholar, in his lecture The Historical Christ and the Theological Jesus, March 6, 2012 at Duke University, noticed that Orthodox scholars produced a Jesus that fits their creed, while the skeptics produce a Jesus to fit their ideologies. For example, he notes, it is no accident the Irish scholar Dominic Crossan, a great scholar by the way, writes a life of Christ as an Irish revolutionary. So don't forget, it's Dale Allison. I'll do that again because it's really important. Dale Allison from Duke University noticed that Orthodox scholars produced a Jesus that fits their creeds, while the skeptics produce a Jesus to fit their ideologies. For example, he notes it is no accident the Irish scholar Dominic Crossan writes the life of Christ as an Irish revolutionary who was under the imperial power of Rome. As we take a look at the history of the historical Jesus quest, we see how especially skeptics, who boast of their superior objective historiography, are as guilty as any. H. Ramirius, in 1894 to 1768, wrote a life of Jesus as Jewish revolutionary. D.F. Strauss, in 1808 to 1874, for him Jesus was a myth, i.e. the New Testament was a projection of the church into a fictitious past. Ernest Renan, 1823-1892, Jesus was a romantic visionary. H.J. Holtzman, in 1832 to 1910, Jesus was a teacher of timeless ethical truth. Johannes Weiss, in 1863 to 1914, Jesus was an eschatological teacher figure who should be fitted into the first century Judaism. Alexander Schweitzer, 1875 to 1965, Jesus was a failed prophet but a towering personality who we can learn about if we go back to the Jewish context and avoid the early church's historical spin. Rudolf Bultmann, 1884 to 1976, he saw Jesus as a preacher of timeless truth, using his existentialism to reconstruct him. He thought we must avoid the Jewish context. Even the last 20 years, modern Jesus studies are plagued with many ideas of who the historical Jesus is. The showing methods are shaping the historical material to fit the scholars' agenda. All these scholars wrote about Jesus influenced by their intellectual horizons and culture. It is not to say they do not have any relevant insight into who Jesus was, but only to show that they soon became out of fashion. So I'll just break off there. Just two examples. Ernest Renan, 1823-19 to 1892, Jesus was a romantic visionary. When Renan was writing, there were many poets, novelists, writers who had a kind of romantic hero view of the past. And so it's no accident that Ernest Renan writes a life of Jesus with that kind of methodology. And so you can go through every one of the historical Jesus scholars from Ramirez right down to Schweitzer, and everyone is writing a Jesus with a bias from their own cultural and historical perspective. You can find more information on that in N.T. Wright's book, Who Was Jesus, 1989. However, the new atheists have not broke free from creating a Jesus in their own image. So let's look at some modern atheist scholars. The British scientist Richard Dawkins considered Jesus is a product of the later church, a mythological figure who might have existed. Now, he gives no analysis of any historical data in depth. page 199 to page 22 of his book, The God Delusion, to back up his claims. When he comments on the history of the church, he uses, in the main, secondary sources, i.e. a few scholars, and does not know the few primary sources he quotes, i.e. the Gospel of Thomas. Then we have the British journalist and writer Christopher Hitchens, 13th of April 1949 to 15th of December 2011, in his book God Is Not Great. Page 40, page 51, page 60, page 64, page 68, page 89, page 109 to 23, page 127 to 128, page 130, page 152, page 158 to 159. In his polemical attack on Christianity, Hitchens' conclusion is that